This is the Mercedes GLE. It's a 5-seater large SUV and rivals the BMW X5 and the Land Rover Discovery.
You may think this looks very familiar, and you'd be right to think so because it's not entirely new.
Sure, the name GLE is new and the bodywork and interior has been tweaked, but it's really a refresh of the old ML class. Those styling tweaks include a more rounded front end with new lights and a bumper, and the back there's new lights and a new bumper. Overall, Mercedes hasn't rocked the boat too much.
It's very much a case of spot the difference in here as well, because the dashboard is very much the same as you got on the old ML class. The only real difference being this tablet-like screen perched on top of the dashboard, which you get in virtually all new Mercedes these days. It's controlled by a rotary wheel down here and a little tablet, like a little mobile phone if you will. It's a pretty good system, but it's not quite as good as BMW's iDrive system, for instance. Overall, it's starting to look a little bit dated in here, but having said that, there is a lot of storage. For instance, the glove box is pretty large. I mean, we've got the owner's manual in here, as you'd expect. Under the armrest, we've got space for a tablet and a small packet of crisps. There's 2 charging ports in there as well, a couple of cup holders, space for your keys, and a little slot under here. I've got my wallet under there, for instance, and the door bins are pretty large as well. Overall, it's pretty good in here. The upgrade from ML class to GLE has meant there's more standard equipment. The range kicks off with Sport, which comes with 19-inch alloys, LED headlights, artificial leather seats, park assist with a reversing camera, sat-nav and heated front seats.
AMG line, like we have here, adds racier styling, air suspension and ambient lighting. Designo line adds a leather dashboard, leather seats, massaging front seats and a Harman Kardon stereo system, while the performance-minded 450 AMG and Mercedes-AMG GLE 63S have their own unique styling and equipment.
Now, while the front end is new and curvaceous, the back end is still square, which really helps with space in the boot. Now, once the tailgate has finally risen, you'll see that there's a nice large loading area. The load lip isn't too bad, the boot floor is completely flat, and that really helps with items. Look, I've got a camera bag here and I can slide that to the back, and of course a staple on all Carbuyer shoots, Carbuyer umbrella. Let's slot that in, and the space is nice and big, it's really usable. Now, if I want to fold the rear seats down, this is where the GLE tends to show its age a little bit, because in a lot of modern day cars you have lots of stalks and toggles and buttons to fold the seats down, but not in the GLE. I have to fold the seat base up and pull the lever to pull the back down, and if I shove that bag out of the way, you'll see, despite my grumblings, there is a completely flat floor, which is fantastic to shove those large items in. Now, let's push this back up, back into place, put that squab in, and while we're here, we may as well talk about rear space, hadn't we? And if I hop in, you'll find that there's a good amount of knee room, good amount of headroom, and if I want to slouch, I can put my feet underneath the seat in front of me and I can get really comfortable. There's a lot of space for middle passengers as well. Mercedes have cut some space out of the floor here so I can slot my feet in. It's very comfortable, a lot of elbow room, and even though we've got a glass panoramic roof in this car, headroom is still pretty good.
Unlike some other large SUVs, there's a wide range of petrol, diesel and hybrid engines, all with 4-wheel drive. If you want petrol, then you have to look higher up the range at models like the GLE 450 AMG, which uses a smooth 362 brake horsepower 3-litre V6, or there's the bonkers 5.5-litre turbo V8 in the Mercedes-AMG GLE 63S. There's also a hybrid which uses the V6 petrol and an electric motor and emits just 84 grams per kilometre of CO2, so it's free to tax.
But let's be honest, it's the diesels that will interest most, and there's 2 of them. There's a 201 brake horsepower 2.1 litre diesel, but with 4 cylinders it's a little bit gruff and quite noisy when accelerating. We'd suggest going for the 3 litre V6 diesel, and with 254 brake horsepower there's lots and lots of punch. Both the Mercedes-AMG GLE 63S and the hybrid versions get a 7-speed auto, but all the others get a 9-speed auto, and it's brilliant. It flits through gears really easily and it's very, very smooth.
You can control the gearbox with paddles behind the wheel, but more often than not, you're going to let the gearbox do the hard work and just relax.
This is where things go a little bit wrong, because the GLE is a motorway cruiser. Turn onto a country lane and you realise the GLE doesn't particularly like being thrown around. The steering is numb, it doesn't have a huge amount of feel, and the whole car really plays second fiddle to the BMW X5. What's more, it's not fantastically comfortable. Now, this AMG line car has air suspension, but even in the most comfortable setting, this car is finding all sorts of potholes and ridges and bumps to clamber over. Naturally, it gets even worse when you go into sport mode. Now, I'm probably being a little bit picky, but the GLE is starting to look a little bit old. Despite the styling and the tech upgrades, it's starting to look a little bit dated on the outside and on the inside. Mind you, if you think this car is a little bit too conservative, Mercedes will sell you a coupe version that rivals the BMW X6, and you can watch our review by clicking here. There's also one other problem with the GLE. It's starting to get a little bit pricey these days compared to its nearest rivals. You can check out the full prices on carbuyer.co.uk, but the Mercedes SUV really isn't a cheap buy. The GLE then, should it be on your shopping list? Well, the revisions are most welcome, and for some people, that 3-pointed star will mean the world to them. Me, I don't think the updates have gone quite far enough, and it's starting to feel just a little bit old. However, if you really want one, you need to check out its rivals, and you can do so by clicking the video on the left for our review of the BMW X5, or the video on the right for the Land Rover Discovery. Click at the top for our latest video and on our logo to subscribe.